Hi there, I'm Debra Corey. I am the co-author of the book, Build It, the Rebel Playbook for World-Class Employee Engagement, and I am here with Dom Price of Atlassian. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
In all honesty and transparency, I think you are automatically going to see a height disparity here, just a little bit. So big ideas from Dom,
Yep.
Big guy, big ideas, all about innovation. And we were just talking that actually Dom is not even in HR.
True
Which
story.
I think is good. I think it's good. Tell us about your role and then tell us about the company.
Awesome. So my role is a two-part role. I'm the head of R&D and I'm a work futurist. It doesn't come with a crystal ball, sadly. So the R&D part is an organization we are growing at a rapid rate. We're scaling every single day, every single week. And the worst thing we can do is to stand still. So part of my role and my broader team's role is globally, as we develop products and find new ways of working, how do we do that in the most efficient and effective way? What I found is a lot of businesses focus on just being efficient, doing things faster, and not evolving the way they work.
Yes.
And so in my time here at Atlassian, which is about 4.5 years, we've gone from 450 people to 2,500. And we've got more and more customers and more competitors and more products. Everything in that world is changing, so we have to evolve the way we work. And then the other half of my role is, as we learn things that work for teams, and we take that externally. And actually my mission right now is to break the way we work. I want to find an organization.
I've never heard that as a mission. You want to break it.
It's a weird one.
It's a good one.
I've got two missions. One is to make myself redundant, and the other one is to break what we've created. And the reason we put that goal out there is we genuinely believe it works for us. Mm-hmm. But our mission is to unleash the potential in every team. So to do that, I want to find teams in every nook and cranny around the world. Mm-hmm. And often I go for more traditional businesses like government, public service, banking and financial services, where they've got hundreds of years of history. And actually that history might be a noose around their neck. So how do they find new ways of working? And so what we do is we take that externally, we learn from them, things that work, things that don't. I bring that back internally. We use that to evolve our way of working, and externally again. So it's a very tight loop, and it stops us being insular.
I think it's innovative for a couple of reasons. First of all, a lot of people look internally and they don't think about what they can learn from others, which is what I've loved about writing the book, because I have to admit, every time I talk to someone, I learn a lot from you. But then also about looking for the future and being that few steps ahead of everyone. I think that that's a great way to be thinking.
It is, but it's a difficult one. And if I look at the challenges that a lot of organizations face and the resistance, like the barriers that come into play, it's this fear, and this plays into the innovation conversation, this fear that what worked for me last week or last year will surely work again next week or next year. And the problem is it will work. It's just going to pay a smaller dividend.
Right.
And each time it pays a smaller dividend, your business is shrinking. And so to stay relevant, in this business world, which is going through epic change, to stay relevant, you have to be evolving at a faster pace than the environment, same or faster. Right. And so you have to be able to give up the legacy of what was successful for you before. And that's why I like to pick older or more traditional businesses, because they often get carried away with the heritage and history of what made them successful, which sadly probably won't be the thing that makes them successful in the future.
Yeah, if you look at some of the organizations that no longer exist, it's because they haven't been able to keep up. So how do you build innovation into the DNA of your organization? I know in the play that we wrote about in the book, you talked about 3 different programs, but just high level, how do you build that into the mindset of all of your employees?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the first thing, which is probably the best gift I ever got given, our two founders, co-founders, Scott and Mike, when they started Atlassian, one of their views and values was that innovation exists in everyone. Innovation isn't the lone genius. It's not seniority. No, it's not an innovation lab or an innovation room. It's not innovation posters or paraphernalia. It's innovation and curiosity, courageousness, creativity, whatever you call it. It exists in all of us. The problem is most of us have had it beaten out of us, either in school, because we are taught to pass tests and not be creative, or by our parents, or by leaders when we first start in work, who want us to comply and adhere. And so having founders who espouse a belief that a culture of innovation is essential and not up for debate, that's been kind of the foundation that set the whole thing going.
Gives you permission from the start when you join the organization.
It's a weird one. So it kind of does give you permission, but it almost doesn't, because it's so prevalent. There is no permission, because no one comes up to you and says you're allowed.
Right.
And so it's just assumed. And so what you get is you get the ability to beg for forgiveness. but you never get permission.
Right,
And so it's funny because the minute you grant permission, it becomes a hierarchical thing. Yeah, it's a strange dichotomy. The first element is under the banner of a culture of innovation, we expect every single employee to innovate every day. Full stop. It's no one person's role, it's everyone's role. And so one of our values, and our values are quite prolific, one of our values is be the change you seek, which says if you don't like what you see or what you do, you're empowered to change it.
Yes.
You have to change it for good and not for evil, and good being the greater good. Right. So you can't just change things that work for you at the detriment of the other 2,500 employees or organizations. And so that manifests in every piece of work we do. So our daily routines are constantly evolving. I probably wouldn't even call that innovation. It's like increments, small increments, but it means that you build these little bits of momentum, small rituals, small habits that we change every single day. The next component is 20% time, or as some of our teams call it, Innovation Week. So we give a notional amount of time to our teams to say, you own improving the world around you. And the analogy I like to think about this is military teams and elite sports teams. They spend, if you look at military teams, spend 98% of their time training, 2% delivering. Elite sports teams, probably 95% training, 5% delivering. And you look at business teams and we spend 95% of our time delivering and 5% learning. So we give our teams time to say, just pause, come up for air, look around you, what's changing in your world in the future, what products are you using, what customers are you dealing with, what new stakeholders are you dealing with, are you increasing in size, are you hiring people, are you changing, like what's altering in your world and your environment, and then we give them a week, or we give them 1 day a week to hack at that, to go and improve it, to drive their own, it kind of looks a lot like spring cleaning. Okay, you're not going buying a new house and you're not building an extension, but you're making what you've got better. And so that is, again, quite incremental. And still, we do get some innovations that come out of there where you're like, wow, that could be a spark of something. And so what we find in that innovation time is they will find a seed, but they won't necessarily have the time or the right people to turn that seed into anything. And then the third thing we do, which is the out there disruptive innovation,
which is where I first read about you guys.
Yes. It's called Ship It. Ship It used to be called FedEx Day until we got a cease and desist letter from FedEx. Ship It started years ago in Atlassian. The first Ship It we ran was 14 people. And that's because we had 14 employees. And so the finals were people walking around each other's desks, looking at what they'd done. We only had engineers at the time, so it was just a whole lot of code. And then everyone was like, this is a really cool idea. We should do it more often. So it's now a ritual that we do every quarter. So every 90 days, we pick a Thursday lunchtime all around the world. Everyone downs tools, stops what they're doing, and you get 24 hours to work on whatever you want. Literally whatever.
And how much of it comes from the seed? So you talk about the 20% time as the seed. Is it then transferred over to people and then they grow it, or different ideas?
You see a complete mix. So you see some people have been germinating on a completely separate idea for ages. Others, something happened to them the day before and they're like, right, I want to work on this. We get ideas that work on our foundation, which is our charity. We get ideas that work on internal process and practice and ways of working. We get HR ideas, marketing ideas, we get product ideas, like so many different things. And it's because you give them a complete blank canvas, complete freedom. And it's a strange litmus test as an organization. I mean, Ship It is a very selfless exercise in creating. But actually, if you become selfish, I walk around when we're doing Ship Its, and many of our other leaders do, and when you just listen and watch and see the passion that's being displayed, and you look at the themes that people are working on, I think it's better than any engagement survey you can ever do.
Yeah.
It's better than any presentation training you can ever do. So we're now at Ship It 40.
Right.
In fact, Ship It 40 was the last one we did a couple of months ago, and we had over 400 teams globally taking part. And the one thing we asked them to do at the end of the 24 hours is they get 3 minutes to pitch their idea to their peers.
Right.
The prize is a tacky trophy from the dollar store. There's no monetary prizes because Dan Pink and everyone else.
That trophy.
Dan Pink and everyone else has proven that if you give monetary rewards, you don't increase creativity, you increase compliance. And so it's about bragging rights. It's about recognition from your peers. What then happens is a whole lot of ideas. You imagine in 24 hours, it's quite hard to finish something. So we get a lot of concepts presented. If they get a high number of votes, that's a hat tip to you that your idea might be a good idea. Those ideas you'll often then see being done in 20% time to evolve them further, and they'll get represented or presented to a team. And so it creates this cycle again.
I think it's great how they all work together, because you are right. Sometimes I've seen in organizations you have hackathons or whatever, and you get these great ideas. and then nothing happens with them. So it's creating some type of ownership and also giving people the time.
Giving them the time. And then also one of the things we've been, I mean, you have to hack at your own practices to stay relevant. So Ship It 40 bears no resemblance to the first Ship It, and Ship It 41 will be different again. We're continually evolving how we do it. One thing we added in recently, which was quite amusing, was the Titanic prize. And so this is the prize for ideas that look genius, but that hit an iceberg along the 24 hours and sank.
Aww.
And so
you're recognizing failure.
Yeah.
Not failure.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's not a good word.
Yeah, so we want to extract the lessons from that, because we're like, your idea was amazing.
Yeah.
It clearly was, because it came from the heart. So how can we understand what you did and what didn't work, so we can learn from that? And again, it's just a very simple idea of saying it's not the ideas that get the best votes or the most number of votes that are the best. Yeah. Sometimes there's a whole of other ideas and golden nuggets out there that just trigger the thought. And then what you'll see at the Ship It finals all around the world is our product managers, bless them, standing at the back of the room, normally with a notepad or their phone taking notes, because they're looking at problems that our teams are solving, and they're using it to stretch their mind of how do they understand our customers and what our products do for our customers.
It must be great for them, just this rich knowledge.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of Ship It ideas just naturally end up on people's roadmaps. Probably about 5 or 6 Ship Its ago, we had 3 finalists that were all solving the same problem, but a very different way.
Interesting.
And so the great thing was the following week, the product manager got those 3 teams together and was like, I want to understand how you approach this, because it's fascinating. Because none of you are right and none of you are wrong. You've just all looked at the world through a different lens. And I want to understand that lens, because every one of our customers is different. Right. So even though we provide one version of our products, it's good to see the different mindsets of people.
But even that's an interesting and innovative type of approach to it, because a lot of companies, the product manager would say, I like that one best, and just push the other side.
Yeah.
So the fact that they saw it as an opportunity, I think, is really great.
Yeah, I mean, we've got our 5 values, which are paramount to everything that we do. We've got like the unwritten or unspoken 6th value, which is seek first to understand. It's kind of baked into everything that we do, which is at the rate of change we're going through, the volatility that exists in the world, the uncertainty, the ambiguity, the complexity, it's easy to look for things to be predictable, and then you end up jumping to conclusions, which frankly just bring you to a grinding halt. They make you feel great, but they're terrible for the customer. So seek first to understand enables us just to pause, because we run at a rapid pace. Just slow it all down and go, why? Why is that occurring? And what for? And why? And what for? And really get to understand what happened. And so we find walking in the shoes of the other person, whether it be a teammate or a customer, that builds way more empathy than reading a book on empathy.
Yeah, which is a good segue into something that we were talking about earlier when we were talking about diversity of thought. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I loved it.
Yeah, so I mean, we're very passionate about diversity and inclusion. For us, the two go hand in hand. It's pointless trying to hire a diverse pool of people and then putting them in an environment that basically they get organ rejection and leave. So we are constantly evolving inclusion, as in how does our environment make people not only feel welcome, but I really want them to feel like they can do the best work of their life every single day, whether it be in our office, working remotely, working in one of our other offices, however they contribute. I want that contribution to be the best of their life. Diversity side is an interesting one. We've been on the journey for a while. One of my colleagues, Aubrey, is our head of diversity and inclusion and does a wonderful job around helping us understand, again, build our awareness of what it means and how the world operates. And one of the things that we've been pushing on recently is the value of cognitive diversity. The idea that great minds don't think alike. It's particularly relevant for me because in my first ever job in the UK, I remember the first time I got to hire people, I just hired people like me. Yeah. They were really cool. They were really cool. They were like super cool, super cool. Yes. And the only thing we were good at was drinking together. Talk about football and sport and whatever else and hanging out. We had a lot of fun, but when it actually came to the thing we were supposed to do, the work, we were terrible because we just agreed all the time. Yeah. We violently agreed. It was painful. And so what I've learned through working with Aubrey and a few other colleagues is cognitive diversity says that how do you find non-like-minded people that will challenge you? And how do you get that background of experience, maybe different lifestyle, different location? Now, gender and race and religion and all things are kind of a proxy to that. But cognitive diversity is just finding that person that won't agree with you. Yeah. But the very important thing that we hire for here is the growth mindset. So I want someone who disagrees with me, but that helps me solve the problem still. So what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, I call respectful dissent. It means that I don't care for the hierarchy. I don't care where you sit in the org chart. I can say to you, It's a great idea. I don't agree with it for the following reasons. Can I help you this way?
Right.
If all you do is play the role of devil's advocate, that's not cognitive diversity, right? You're a pain in the arse, and it's not the growth mindset.
Yeah.
And so what we try and say to people is, you are free to do respectful dissent, but you have to be able to contribute more than you take from the answer, and that breeds way better innovation and creativity and curiosity. And also, what you realize over time is you become more representative of the customers you're trying to serve.
Yeah.
The problem with my ideas is they only come from my lens, and I'm not a sole Atlassian customer. And so the more people I can interact with to finesse my idea, the better the idea becomes. The thing I have to overcome as a leader or as just a contributor is the minute you come up with an idea, you want to kind of get your arms around it because it's yours, it's your baby, and letting go of that is the barrier for me.
Right.
And so I've learned that if I get these cognitively diverse people around me, they will rip my idea to shreds. They'll then put it back together again, and what we're left with is far better than I would have come up with myself.
But it's a great way, and again, it fits into how you deal with innovation. It's part of your language. I mean, I love some of the terminology that you used, but if you don't start acting that way, you're never going to get the innovation.
Yeah, I think the struggle that most organisations have, in my experience, is this sort of reframing almost of it. Things like innovation and collaboration are seen as attacks. They slow me down, whereas we've kind of reframed them as an investment. It costs the same. A tax or investment costs the same. It's just what you get out of it is different, and you approach it very differently when you see it as an investment. When you plant that seed, you will nurture it and you will water it and you will care for it. Whereas when it's a tax, that's the thing you avoid paying until the very last minute. And so, what we try and do is to say, if these are genuine investments, what are the circumstances, the scenarios, the environments that we can create that actually give that seed the best chance of turning into a tree? And with our ideas, it's often giving our people freedom and support and encouragement, and then giving them the right amount of challenge.
And it's interesting because a lot of people look at all the things that you do with the 20% time and the ship it and think of it as a tax and saying, look at all that time you're not working on your job. But if you have that mindset, you're never going to get to innovation because it's going to hold you back. You need to see it, as you say, as something that's going to drive you to the next level. Yeah,
I mean, the question I often get asked is normally from finance people is about the return on investment. They love, what's the return on investment?
We want a number.
What's the ROI on ship it? And I'm like, 6. I always give them the answer 6. There isn't a number because that's not the reason you do it. And so what I say to those people who are often quite senior leaders, I say to them, think about the competition that's going to come and eat your lunch, the one that's going to come and take your business away. Are they worried about return on investment, or are they just doing this anyway? Because if they do it anyway, you have to be as fast as them, otherwise you're gone. So you can go and try and measure net present value of your return on investment on this innovation thing, but actually you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. And the reason that is innovation by its very nature is uncertain. It's not predictable. So I challenge people who say, oh, we can calculate the return on investment. That's probably BAU. If you can prove it, it's not innovation.
Right.
The minute you prove something, it's been done.
Yeah.
Probably by your competitors, so at best you're a fast follower. So if you're waiting for proof, you're following. If you want to be a leader in innovating and disrupting, you have to take a leap of faith because it is inherently uncertain. And so ROI is the wrong measure. We look at engagement, the things we're creating, customer value, and long-term, long-time customer value. And so how can you build that environment? Because if we carry on doing, if Atlassian was doing all the things today that we've done a year ago, we wouldn't be successful. So we have to unlearn and stop doing things, and we have to learn and try new ways of doing things, many of which don't work. But you learn from the things that don't work. The things that do, we double down on. Things that don't work, we share stories. We do a lot of storytelling about the lessons learned from that, so we don't repeat the same mistakes.
So I guess to end up, hopefully, I know you inspire me every time I hear you talk about innovation. If someone hears you and they think, wow, I want to go and start moving into this world, do you have any tips? I know you speak often about innovation, so a couple tips that you can leave us with.
First tip is a weird one. Don't copy our way. Don't copy it, because if you copy it and you try and copy, cut, and paste it, I guarantee it won't work. It's so situational and environmental. What I always suggest to people is find a way that works for you. And to do that, you need to stop, open your eyes, probably shut your mouth, stop telling people what you think. Open your eyes and ears and go and investigate. Find what works for your environment. What are your competitors doing? What do your customers crave? What's going to delight them? What kind of people have you got? If you've got a whole lot of people with a fixed mindset and you implement ship it, you're not going to get great ideas. So the first one is don't copy, find your own way. The second one is try and find a way of making this cultural or values-based.
Yes.
If I think about the transactions of, be the change you seek and 20% time and ship it, without Mike and Scott setting a tone, without having our mission of unleashing the potential in every team, without those ingredients, it wouldn't be the same experience. And so if this is something where someone's flipping you a check and saying, here's a couple of £1,000, go and do some of that innovation thing, probably don't bother.
Well, that's what he said at the beginning. It's truly in your DNA. Everywhere you walk around, you can feel it.
Yes, it's a spirit thing. And then the third one, and this is quite confronting for a lot of leaders who tell me, I want to do this innovation thing, but I've not got the right people, is I ask them this very pointy question. Did you hire idiots or did you create idiots? Because if you hired them, we need to take you out of the hiring process. And if you created them, that's a different solution for you. But what we need to do for them is, if you hired a genius and you've indoctrinated them to your way, they probably still have that potential.
Yes.
So you can squeeze that, you can dust that down, and you can find a way of bringing that growth mindset back out of them. Yeah. So I think way too often organizations like to blame the people when the people are actually the manifestation of the culture and the people they hired. So actually finding little pockets of the organization, try it. I think organizations that try and mandate globally very rarely works. If you start in pockets, you try it, something works, you try it again, the fear of missing out kicks in, and suddenly every department wants to take part.
I think some companies think that their employees don't want to get involved in this, but I mean, you can probably share tons of examples of how your employees. It's a great way to engage with your employees.
So engaging, and it's almost now an expectation that you hire someone who's smart and curious and courageous. You have to give them an environment where they can be that person. So the last thing I want to do is dumb them down, and make them something that they weren't when I hired them.
Well, we talk about bringing your whole self and being creative is a part of who you are.
Definitely. Being able to express yourself and whatever that expression is.
Great. Well, I could go on talking forever, but this has been really helpful, and I really appreciate it. And I know that I'm going to go out and think about how I can make it my own in my company. I will not copy from you.
You can borrow.
I can borrow. Yes. So this is a big rebel when it comes to innovation. So my final tip to you is to go out and be a rebel, whatever that looks like in your organization. Make it your own, and think about how you can bring innovation into your company and make it even better than it is already. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.